Progress.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending today's session on the Diversity Audit Tool. My name is Rachel Fisher. I'm a Member Services Specialist and primarily focus on technical services. However, I'm also the main point of contact for the Diversity Audit Tool. If you have any questions on the Diversity Audit Tool, I'll be the ones that answers them in the help desk tickets. So today our goals will be to learn how to utilize the Diversity Audit Tool and to be able to apply that knowledge to use the Diversity Audit Tool in a practical manner. The purpose of a diversity audit is to help your library to analyze the level of diversity within your collections so that the library can become more inclusive and representative of the community it serves. This can be a very time-consuming process. Without the assistance of a vendor, it can be impossible to analyze a whole library. I've worked with Bob, our systems administrator, and other CCS staff, and a number of library staff to create and test this diversity audit tool so that it can help you complete a diversity audit in a more efficient and less costly manner. The tool utilizes the subject headings in the CCS catalog to automate the diversity audit process so that you can easily analyze the amount of diversity of the topics included in the whole consortium, a whole library, a special collection, or just your individual selection areas. You can then compare your collection to the population statistics from external sources or other libraries in the consortium and identify diverse items to purchase. You could also use it to help you identify titles that need to be promoted or weeded. So first I'd like to review some of the vocabulary that we use to describe the tool in the documentation on our website. The Diversity Audit Tool is the name for the entire tool. The web app and vendor that is used to create the tool is called Tableau. We do not have plans to move the tool into Orange Boy yet. So you may also hear some staff mention the vendors from time to time. However, we do try to refer to the whole tool as the Diversity Audit Tool. So the tool consists of two data dashboards. A data dashboard is a visual display of tables and graphs for the purpose of analyzing key performance indicators or statistics. It's called a dashboard because the construction of the different tables and graphs is reminiscent of the way a car's dashboard has different sections that display different indicators. So the first dashboard is called the Diversity Audit Dashboard. This is the landing page. It is what you see when you first log in. The dashboard displays the tables and graphs that analyze and summarize the data. The key performance indicators include the percentage of diversity in the collection and circulation statistics of those categories. From this dashboard, you can also access a separate page for the statistics of subcategories, and I'll demonstrate that when I log into the tool. The Collection Development Dashboard displays a table to assist you with your selection process by marking titles that the library owns so that you can identify diverse titles that are already owned by other libraries in the consortium. There's also a column of data that indicates which titles have circulated in 3 years. It can help you identify titles to promote in order to increase circulation of the titles that you may want to read. The tool includes 7 topics that are typically audited during a diversity audit. So these are BIPOC subject headings that include the headings for the ethnicities and nationalities of ethnic minorities. There's also disabilities/neurodiversity, which analyzes subject headings for physical disabilities, mental health issues that can be considered disabilities, neurodivergent conditions, and general disability topics. LGBTQIA+ includes subject headings on sexual orientation and gender identity subject headings. Religious minority subject headings includes the religious minorities only. So this excludes Christianity and ancient religions. These topics are each broken down into subcategories so that you can drill down into more granular data. The tool also includes the categories of women, immigrants, and low-income or economic welfare. These categories are too complex to subdivide easily into narrower subcategories. So there are several limitations that you should be aware of. Most importantly, the dashboard automatically tabulates statistics from the subject headings in the bibliographic records. So the data is only as good as the records are. When cataloging, headings can be left out even if a topic is included in a book. The catalogers who work for CCS libraries do an excellent job. However, summaries don't always clearly explain the diverse elements in a plot, especially when it is just a characteristic of the character. The tool cannot include ethnicities of characters if they have not been included in a subject heading. So, for example, I read a fantasy book recently that had gender fluid, gay, and asexual characters in it. However, the subject headings only had descriptions of the book related to fiction and magic. So there were new indicators that there were LGBTQIA+ characters anywhere in the book, and I had to add those in myself when I noticed that they were missing. One of the other limitations is that there frequently is very little information about authors. And I know you like to audit authors and characters, so this is something that cannot be accomplished by our current dashboard. So the librarians that do like to use this tool, think of it as a supplement to a manual audit or one that supplements information from other diversity audits, like ones from vendors. One of the other limitations is that we have not been able to include e-content in the data. So there's 2 reasons for this. One reason is that the subject headings in the e-content records are rather poor, so they can't be analyzed well. We also need to keep the number of records down so that the data is not too difficult for Tableau to analyze automatically. It really does slow down the tool due to the amount of data that we have in it. One of the other limitations that I've received feedback on is related to identifying middle grade items. Unfortunately, every library uses different ways to identify middle grade items, so we haven't been able to add a filter for that to the collection development dashboard yet. We'll need to do some additional research into that in the future. Despite these limitations, the data dashboard will provide you with a quick way for analyzing your collection or selection area so that you can speed up your diversity audit process. While it cannot analyze all of the details that a manual audit could, it can provide you with a way to analyze a larger amount of data to get the big picture. Having the data stored in the dashboard will allow you to quickly and easily track improvements over time. When using the tables for selecting new diverse titles, it will help you to identify titles that are already popular at other libraries so that you know it won't be dead on arrival. By using the list of titles not owned by your library, you'll be helping the cataloging department too. If you purchase items owned by other libraries, the records already exist in the catalog and won't require additional cataloging time. You can also use the tool to identify specific titles to promote or read. If you download a report from the Collection Development Dashboard, it has an ISBN in it. So you can upload that list directly to a record set, and it will create the record set using the ISBNs in the list. Before I demonstrate how to access the dashboard, I'd like to review the training documentation and videos that are available to you. There are 5 pages of documentation and videos for you to refer to, so I recommend reading and watching the videos in the specific order on the screen. So I now need to switch the screen that I'm sharing. One moment, and I will share my browser. So I'm going to start on the CCS webpage to demonstrate where you can find our documentation and how to navigate to the tool. So from the How To drop-down menu, you can find the pages on the Diversity Audit tool under Reporting. If you scroll down a bit, you'll see the category for the Diversity Audit tool, and here you'll find each of the pages. So it's actually got several different pages. The first one is on the interface that will help you learn how to use the Tableau interface and navigate through the dashboard. There's one specifically on the Diversity Audit dashboard, one on the Collection Development dashboard, and we also have an FAQ and a quick reference page that will help you learn how to analyze the Diversity Audit tool statistics and provide you with examples of how to use the statistics. So you can navigate to the Diversity Audit tool from the Member Tools drop-down menu and the Member Tools A to Z page. Right at the top, you will find a tile for the Diversity Audit tool. If you click on View, it will navigate to the tool. There is also a link on the Web Reports website. So I've already logged in. One moment, I just want to hide some captions that I'm seeing at the bottom. So this is the Diversity Audit tool. As I mentioned, the landing page is called the Diversity Audit Dashboard. So the first table in the Diversity Audit Dashboard tabulates the percentage of the collection that fits within the diverse categories. So at the top here, you'll see all of our broader categories. The first row is no representation. No representation means that these bibliographic records do not have one of the subject headings that we're looking for within the diverse categories because it's just analyzing subject headings. So then we have the list in numerical order from greatest percentage to the smallest percentage: women, BIPOC, disabilities or neurodiversity, religious minorities, LGBTQIA+, immigrants, and low-income or economic welfare. So we've got a variety of different statistics here. The first group of statistics are just tabulating the percentage of the collection that fits within these categories and the number of records. So the first section, or the first column, is the percent of bibliographic records. Then we have the number of bibliographic records in the collection. We also have the percent of item records and the number of item records, because this will vary depending on the amount of copies that you have for the library. See, a question just came in. 1 second, let me bring that up. The question is there a document with step-by-step instructions on how to navigate this? I think it would be helpful to have one on file for new employees. Yes, so if you refer to the documentation on the CCS website, there's a number of pages that are here, and I recommend starting with the Diversity Audit Tool interface page, and this will provide you with instructions on how to access the tool and how to use the different features. I'm going to go back to the tool. Next to that, so I just reviewed the Diversity Audit Tools statistics. So first we have the percentage of the collection of the bibs and items and the numbers of records. So after that, we have quite a number of different circulation-related statistics to help you identify what circulates well and what doesn't. So we have the lifetime circulation and the average lifetime circulation. So the average lifetime circulation is calculated from the item records and the number of item records we have. Plus of the year-to-date circulation count in the previous year's year-to-date circulation count. The next column is the bibliographic records average age. And this is calculated from the publication year, not the age of the actual record. So this would be useful to help you identify how old a collection is. If you think that you may need to refresh the collection and identify newer titles to purchase and read the older titles, this column could potentially help you do that. We also have 2 columns on the percentage of items that have circulated. First one's in the last 12 months, and the next one's in the last 36 months. The last column is the number of holds. Will help you identify how popular things are right now, because that is a measurement of the real-time holds, not historic holds. And this is updated every time that we update the data in the diversity audit tool. So this is refreshed every night. So this data is from September 9th. Are there any additional questions? I'm sorry if I'm going too fast. Please let me know. I can see any questions in the chat, and I can slow down and go back to a topic. Okay, so I'm going to keep going on. Below the table of statistics, we have 2 graphs. So the first one, this very colorful graph, just includes the percentage of bibliographic records within each of the diverse categories. And this lists every library in the CCS consortium, so it would allow you to benchmark against other libraries. This isn't to call out specific libraries for being less diverse than others. This will just help you identify the statistics related to libraries that may be similar to yours. For example, if you compare the statistics between Glenview to Morton Grove, because they may have similar populations, you may be able to use those statistics to benchmark against. Below that is another table. It is just for the percentage of bibliographic records that are specifically in the statistics in the summary graph at the top and doesn't represent a specific library. So this represents the statistics that are filtered to using the filters. So we've got a number of different filters to help you filter the data, whether you want to analyze the data in your whole library, a collection, the whole consortium, or just your selection area. You can use these filters. So the first one at the top here on the left is the year of the first available date. So this is the date that is in the item record and represents the date that your item first became available. So it was switched from a circulation status of in process to available on a date. So it's a slide bar that you can move. You can also click on the dates here to be more specific. So you could change it to like the fiscal year's date, July through June, for like July 1st through June 30th. The collections that we have in our collection filter are the adult, youth, and teen fiction, multimedia, and nonfiction collections. So as I mentioned, we don't have a content in here, and we don't have materials in here like kits or STEM kits that don't have a lot of subject headings related to the diverse categories. So the MARC type of material is the type of material that comes from the bibliographic record. So if you're unfamiliar with this, we do call it TOM for short. This is the type of material that Polaris uses to decide on what image displays in the pack, and it will be what will display on the tabs in BiblioCore when we get BiblioCore in the future. There's also a filter for the statistical code. This is in the item records, and statistical codes include the Dewey decades and genres that are available in the statistical code of the item record. There's also a filter for the publication year, and this comes from the bibliographic record. We have two language filters. The first one is the primary language, and the second one is additional languages, because there's two places where the language can come from in a bibliographic record. So here you can select for the primary language any of the languages that could be in your collection. You can use it to filter just to the English-only materials or any of the non-English languages. So the additional languages filter would help you to identify bilingual items, but one of the limitations is that our records are not always very consistent on what's the primary language or the additional language. We've tried to emphasize that the non-English language of bilingual materials should be the primary language. Like if it's Spanish and English, we'd prefer it to be Spanish as a primary language, so you can identify those, but there are records that have English as the primary language, so you could select English and Spanish as a primary language and additional languages, or you could do two different reports, one for English as the primary language and Spanish as the additional language, and then run the report again with Spanish as the primary language. We also have an assigned branch filter here. This lists all of the branches in the CCS catalog, so you can narrow it down just to your library or a specific branch at your library, or select multiple libraries to compare it to. These filters will also affect the subcategory filters, or the subcategories that we can click on by, or navigate to by clicking on drill down into subject matter categories. I did see a question coming in. Jill at Carey is asking about the middle grade data. I mentioned that it's not represented well in the tool. Does this mean filtering by youth fiction would be missing a good amount of data? So the problem with middle grade data is that some libraries use the youth collection for middle grade, and some libraries use the young adult collection, or teen collection, I mean, for middle grade. So if you know that yours is just youth or teen, you'd be able to just select that specific collection and filter to it to find the middle grades in those through those collections. However, if you want to try to find a middle grade title that could be at another library, or analyze the statistics from the dashboard by comparing it to the whole consortium, you will have to select both teen and youth to be completely inclusive of all middle grade titles because of how inconsistent it is. So I'm going to now navigate to the subject matter categories, or the subcategories, I should say, of the subject matter categories. That's a button under the summary table. So on this subcategories page, we have each of the broader categories as tabs so that you can see the narrower subcategories in each of these categories for BIPOC, LGBTQIA+, disabilities, and religious minorities. So we don't have subcategories yet for women, low income, or economic welfare, and immigrants. The BIPOC table can be a bit complex. You can see we've got subcategories and subcategories. So here we have tried to match the subcategories of the US Census, but there are times where we have chosen the term that's more commonly used by the community. So for each of these subcategories, we have statistics broken down by the subcategories with the row of the subcategory total underneath it. So within these categories, you'll see we have some that have qualifiers in parentheses. For example, at the top we have Asian with general in parentheses. This is reserved for the subject headings that don't have specific nationalities, like Asian women. The one that has Asian other countries in parentheses, this is for the countries that we don't specifically call out as subcategories. So we chose these just because they're the nationalities that have a higher population in our country. You will see one in here that is just BIPOC. This is specifically because there are some local subject headings in our records. You may have seen those in the 691 field that have a city like Palatine, Illinois, and then it might say BIPOC author or BIPOC subject. We also have a category labeled multiracial, so this is for multiracial subject headings. There's one category for race-related topics, and that would be things like race relations or ethnic relations. So I'm going to navigate back to the diversity audit dashboard. If you are interested in seeing a list of subject headings in the tool, this subject headings button does have a full list of the subject heading and how they are categorized. It's a very long list, but if you are interested, you're welcome to take a look at that list. Press the wrong back button, 1 second. I'm going to navigate back to the tool. Are there any questions about the diversity audit dashboard before I move on to the collection development dashboard? Okay, so I've thought of something that I forgot to point out about the dashboard. So we do have some help features that are built into the dashboard. At the top, there's the button for help topics that will take you to the CCS webpage. We also have a button that will allow you to send an email to the help desk if you have any questions. And we do have the text that will pop up explaining what each of the blue buttons are if you hover over them. And I'll get back to the section at the bottom. So the bottom will help you to save your view and download reports. So I'll get back to that when I demonstrate how to use the tool for a specific case study. I'm going to navigate now to the collection development dashboard. So at the top, you can see that there are a lot of filters that look similar to the diversity audit dashboard, but these filters are independent of it. So when you navigate to this collection development dashboard to help you identify specific titles that you may want to purchase or to highlight in a promotion or carousel, you will need to set up these filters separately. So some of the same filters that I already explained are the year, the first available date, the publication year, statistical code, collection, language filters, type of material. But there are some differences with the filters here. So in the publication year, we do have it limited to the most recent 3 years because the amount of data is so great in this tool that it will really slow down how it functions if we don't limit the data. So if you're looking for something older than 2024, like from 2023, you will need to make a different selection for the publication year and expand that. We also have a subject matter filter. So this will help you to decrease the amount of titles that are in your table. You can also select specific subject matter if you want to narrow it down to identify intersectional titles. One of the filters that is not in the diversity audit dashboard is circulated in 3 years. So if you're looking to identify something that's more popular that has circulated in 3 years, you can check the box for yes. But if you want to see if you can find something that hasn't circulated yet, you can check the box for N or no. So this could help you identify something that you may want to try to promote to increase the circulation of it, or that you may need to weed. And instead of an assigned branch filter, we have a highlighter for the owning branch. So if you check the box for the owning library highlighter, it will highlight the titles that your library owns. So I've checked the box for Grayslake, just as an example. So on this dashboard, we have a table that lists the titles in the collection that are selected for analysis. So I'm going to narrow this down a bit to decrease the amount. And that's brought it down to 2,810. So I'm going to scroll down a bit so you can see how the owning branch has been highlighted. So in this table, we have the title, author, subject matter, the subcategory, the subcategory for those that are in the BIPOC categories, and marked titles owned. So because there are so many different combinations of of settings that are in item records, like teen could be used for middle grade, or youth could be used for middle grade. You'll see multiple rows for the same bibliographic record. You can see that in the bib ID. We've got the same bibliographic record here in 2 rows. So this is because the libraries all have different settings that they use and are not consistent. And you can see that there's 2 rows here for your final moments. And in this new column here, you can see one has a letter N and one row doesn't. So this means that there's a library that still has this in the new category or the new books collection, and another library does not. So you'll see multiple rows like that. And when you look at this marked titles owned column, because we do have multiple categories and multiple rows that these could be in, this star here indicates that your library, when it's highlighted, owns this item record related to this combination. So Gray's Lake has this marked as a new book and hasn't denuded it yet. But there are other libraries that have denuded already. So there's another row here that doesn't have an asterisk for the library that owns it. But in this table, you can see that we've been able to highlight both rows. So you can see that table, or you can see that Gray's Lake owns that bibliographic records items as well. So in this marked titles owned column, you also may see a library's name and not just an asterisk. The asterisk does mean that more libraries than one owns it, but if you just see your name there, that just means that one library owns it. So we also have publication year, the bib ID, collection. New is for whether it's a new item or not, if the item's material type is new or not. We have a column for circulated within 3 years. The item's lifetime circulation is next. Number of items. We have a column for the ISBN or UPC, but this can only contain one ISBN or UPC from the bibliographic record. So if you use our search titles selected for analysis to search for an ISBN, you may be selecting the wrong one if it's not coming up. So sometimes it's easier to search by title. We also have a column for the number of holds on that title, so you can see a real-time amount of the holds as of the date that the dashboard has been updated. So you can see in here the date that was last updated of November 9th. If you are doing some research on another website and come across a review of something that sounds interesting, you can actually enter that information into the search titles selected for analysis section to see if libraries already own that in the consortium and see how well that's doing. If it's potentially something that's already circulating, something that's won an award, you may come across any number of items. But if you don't come across it at first, as I mentioned, you may need to try a different ISBN or UPC, or just search under the author or title. One other thing that you may need to do is change the publication year filter so that it's searching for a larger amount of years. I'm just going to apply that through 2020. So we'll take some time to update that filter. It can be a bit slow because there is a lot of data. So I'm going to type in an author's name, Gorman Amanda. Oh, I typed Amanda wrong. And this will bring up all of the works by Amanda Gorman in the collection. And I will need to select Grayslake again, and you can then see which ones are owned by Grayslake and how well they're circulating. So you can see that these ones at the top are quite popular because they have a much higher lifetime circulation count. There's some that have a lower circulation count that look like they're in Spanish. But just by perusing these statistics, you could have an idea of what could be more popular at your library. Are there any questions on using these features that I've demonstrated so far for the collection development dashboard? So one of the features of the tool, and this might be a bit hard to see, all the way at the bottom, we've got some small icons. So once you've filtered your tool or your table to the settings that you want to use, you can download this and do some further analysis in Excel. So right here on the right-hand side, there is a small little icon here for downloading the report. To download an Excel file, you will click on Cross Tab. And then check the box for the one called Download. You can ignore the one called Title 1 and click Download to download the report. So you'd be able to then analyze it as you want in Excel to do some additional filterings or sorting. And also, because there's an ISBN in it, you can upload that to load the records into a record set in Leap. So the next thing on my agenda is doing a case study to demonstrate how to use the tool with a practical case. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen for a second and switch back to PowerPoint. So now you should be seeing my PowerPoint slides again. Are you seeing the right screen? So for the case study, we're going to be looking at Palatine's collection. Palatine has given me permission to use their library as an example in my training. So for this case study, we're going to use the prompt, what topics should the library purchase in larger quantities during the fiscal year 25 and 26 for the Youth Multimedia's video collection? So to do so, we're going to look at the purchases from fiscal year 2024 to 2025 for the Youth Multimedia collection. And these are going to have the type of material of DVD, Blu-ray, and video recording. So on this next slide, I have included the statistics from the 2020 census just to highlight some statistics that we could potentially compare our data to in the tool. And the ones that I've highlighted are the ethnic minorities in which they are 3% or more within the community of Palatine that the library district serves. So I need to switch my screen again and go back to the tool. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is to set up the filters. So I want to analyze the fiscal year 24-25, and I'm going to change the first available date to July 1st, 2024 through June 30th. Oh, that did change that very well. July 1st, 2024. I'll just slide it here. Okay, so I'll use 2024 to 2025. I was getting it to allow me to type in the date yesterday, but it's being a bit finicky and wasn't allowing me to change it to the month, date, year. But if you fiddle with it, it will allow you to make it July to June. So I'm going to decrease the amount in the report by unchecking 2021 and 2023 for the publication year. We'll just look at 24 and 25. I'll change the collection to use multimedia. Oh, I forgot to navigate back to the Diversity Audit Tools dashboard. So I'm going to set up that filter again. I meant to start with this page and use the Diversity Audit dashboard first. Okay, so this one is working better for the first available date. It's letting me type in the month, day, and year. That was working the other day. I knew it worked. So I'm gonna click on Use Multimedia, and you will just we'll look at Blu-ray plus DVD in case they have those, Blu-ray disc, DVD, and video recording. And then press Apply to apply those. And I will deselect everything for the assigned branch and just select Palatine's branches. Palatine has 3 branches. And then click on Apply. Okay, so now that I've set up the filters for a specific library, I want to come back down to some of these icons at the bottom. So we've got a number of different icons at the bottom that will help you to revert the view back to the original view, like reset it. But the ones that will be the most useful to you are the ability to save a custom view and to just select a specific view you've already saved so that you don't have to set up these filters over and over again. So you can do this set this up for your selection area and save it. So I'll call this Palatine Use Multimedia. If you want to make this your default view, you can, and I'll press Save. So when you log into the tool, if you want to just save a view, you'd be able to click on that icon right next to Save a View that says View Original, to click on that view you just saved so that you don't have to take the time to set up all of your filters again. But if you do filter it to a specific fiscal year, you'll need to update that for the next fiscal year. Does anyone have any questions about the views, the filters, or setting up the views as I just demonstrated? So on the left-hand side, or the right-hand side, there are some additional icons here. So once you have your view set up, if you want to have this data emailed to you on a regular basis, this icon called the watch icon with the eye allows you to set up a subscription so that you can email it to yourself or on like a regular basis. So you can subscribe other users to this too, like if a circulation or a manager of the department wants to just set it up for other staff, you can add their email addresses into this to subscribe to it. And you would then click on this view if you want it to just be the view you have. There are different formats that you can choose: an image, a PDF, and an image in PDF. Although the way it sends it to you is very small. So if you need this for a report, it's actually easier to just take a screenshot so that you have a nicer sized image than getting it emailed to you or downloading a report that's not an Excel report. You do have the ability to set up a schedule here for it to be emailed to you on a regular basis too. And as I mentioned before, this next download icon will allow you to download that information in Excel. It also has a PDF file, PowerPoint, or image, but again, it's very small, like the one that would be emailed to you. So let's take a look at these statistics. So we can see in the fiscal year 24-25 that Palatine purchased a number of items for youth multimedia. Publishers don't create very diverse amount of media every year, so there's probably a very limited amount that they can purchase on any given year, but we can see that their purchases did include some BIPOC titles that had women's subject headings, and one with disabilities or neurodiversity. So just looking at these statistics, would anyone like to share ideas of what they think Palatine should be purchasing for fiscal year 25-26 for the Youth Multimedia Collection? So feel free to type in the chat or unmute yourself if you'd like. I don't see any ideas coming in, but we can see that there are a number of topics that they could potentially purchase at any given time. Any additional neurodiversity and disabilities options would be excellent to add into the collection. I see that topic was added into the chat. Are there any other ideas? So I'm going to drill down into the subject matter categories and see what we have here. So with the filter set, they are applied to these subcategory tables, and we can see within that BIPOC category that their purchases included titles related to topics of Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander issues, Native American, Mexican, and South American titles. So that's a pretty good mix. Let's take a look at our statistics again. So we can see that within Palatine's district, Their minorities can include African Americans, a fairly large Asian population, and also a large Hispanic or Latino population. So if you were looking for titles that represented the Palatine's district and the diverse amount of nationalities and ethnicities in the district, what do you think you might be interested in considering for the collection? Feel free to type some suggestions into the chat. Okay, great. We've got some suggestions that came in. So more items on Asian and Hispanic titles, more items on Hispanic and Latino titles. Yes, that's a great idea. The town of Palatine definitely has a very diverse Asian population. They have a Sikh temple, so there's a large Indian population, and they also have a large Japanese and Korean population and Chinese population as well. So I'm going to go back to the diversity audit dashboard so that I can navigate to the collection development dashboard. So these filters are independent of the diversity audit dashboard, so I need to reset them because they still had Amanda Gorman in my search field. So let's say I want to be open to purchasing something that was published within the last 3 years. So I'm going to use the first available date filter to narrow it down to 2023 to 2025. And I'm going to take a look at this filter here. So I'm just going to add one more year. So we've got 24, 25, and 26 checked already. So I'll add 23 to it. So with each filter, if we check the box and press apply, it does take a while to load that information. And I need to use the collection filter to check the box for youth multimedia. Press apply. I'm going to narrow down the type of material to Blu-ray. I'll select Blu-ray plus DVD, DVD, and video recording, and then press apply. So I do want to make sure that these titles have circulated in 3 years because I want to find titles that are somewhat popular, and I'll press apply to that. So let's take a look at 2 different filters. I'm going to select the BIPOC subject matter filter, and I'm interested in seeing if I can find anything that could be intersectional. So I'm going to also select disability/neurodiversity. So one of the benefits of this tool is that if something has multiple subject headings in it, like a ethnicity or nationality and something related to a disability or neurodiversity, it will have these that bibliographic record on multiple rows because there's one for each subject matter line and one for row for each combination of categories, like kind of like the count reports in Simply Reports where there's like one row for each combination of categories. So you can identify something that is intersectional by looking to see where the duplicate titles are. So it'll be easier to see when I download that to Excel. So in the owning library highlighter, I'm going to highlight Palatine, so we know what Palatine already owns. And this is not a bad number. This has brought this down to 80 bib records in our title selected for analysis. If you wanted to decrease that number, you could change the publication filters. So I'm going to download that report to Excel and show you some useful features in Excel. So one of the things that happens when we download the report to Excel is it does not retain that yellow highlighting. So we're going to have to use some conditional formatting in Excel to help basically bring that back. One second, I have to navigate to it from File Explorer. Okay. So one of the things that it does when it downloads the file to Excel is that these numerical columns are formatted as text, and we want to format them as a number. So I'm just going to so sometimes you'll see like it's not doing it today, but sometimes you'll see like a little green triangle with like an alert, like the exclamation mark. So if you highlight those and then click on that triangle with the exclamation mark, you can reformat them as number. So it looks like it's still calling it protected. So I need to open this again so that it allows me to edit it. There we go. Okay, here you go. It's allowing me to edit it. You can see those little triangles, another green triangle. That means it's not a number. So I'm going to reformat this. And click on this little triangle here and convert that to number. So this will allow you to sort these. So I'm just going to sort the lifetime circulation. So we can have everything that's most popular at the top. And in order to try to find the duplicate rows that will just be different combinations of categories, I'm going to use conditional formatting. So I don't know if you have any experience with this yet, but I find it really useful. I use it all the time for trying to find duplicates. So this is conditional formatting. You can highlight your cells according to different things like text that contains or duplicate values. So right here, I'm just going to click on duplicate values. And it will highlight all of the rows that have duplicate values. If you wanted to do some other highlighting here, you could highlight the rows or filter to the rows that have asterisks in it. So this one is the marked titles owned column. So everything with an asterisk is owned by multiple libraries, including Palatine. And the ones that say Palatine are just owned by Palatine. So I'm going to apply filters to the top row. And the conditional formatting would just highlight that one column. So I want to actually highlight all of these so it's easier to find. So I'm just going to highlight all of these rows except for the ones that already have conditional formatting in them in yellow. So I know these are the ones owned by Palatine. I'm going to clear that filter. But you can see that there's also some ones here that Palatine owns but has an additional line in it. Like here, there's an asterisk, but just above that you can see a duplicate line without an asterisk. That's just a different combination, but it's the same bibliographic record, the same title. So they own that too. So if I were looking through this, I could then try to identify some specific categories that I'd be interested in that might have something that Palatine does not own. So I'm going to filter this a bit more and select the Asian category. And right at the top, might be hard to see it at first while you're watching my demonstration, but I can see there's this one book called Dragon Keeper. There aren't any duplicate rows below it, but it does look like it's one that Palatine does not own. And it has a lifetime circulation of 436. This next row here, this is the number of items, so there's 19 copies. There aren't any holds right now. You can see the number of holds in this column P. But that could potentially be a good option for Palatine to purchase. Just highlight that in blue. That's at the top. So if we're trying to find something that's intersectional, we can also highlight some other categories here. So I'm going to check disabilities, mental health, neurodivergence, and physical health. And we can see what could potentially be in both categories. So we'd want to look for something to see if there's duplicate rows. So they'd have titles that are already highlighted because it has multiple rows, and check those categories out to see if something could potentially be in both an Asian category and a disabilities or neurodiversity. It's kind of takes some time to do that, but it would take me a while to scroll through here and find it. So they could potentially see if something else would interest them. Here's a video that looks like they don't have this one Roy Gilman Teenage Kraken. So maybe that would be a good option for them. But after identifying some titles that they may want to purchase, I do recommend checking the pack. Sometimes it can be a bit glitchy, so you do want to take a look in the pack to make sure that Palatine really does not own it and that it wasn't missed by mistake by the tool. So I'm just going to log in quickly. In the pack, you may take some time to take a look at the summary or any information you'd want from the record, some additional information on it. And I'll just take a look at the items briefly. I can see that it's true Palatine does not own it. So potentially that could be a good option of something that's already circulated a lot at the other libraries that could be added to Palatine's collection. Are there any questions about what I've demonstrated? Or would you like to see something again? I might have gone too fast. don't see any questions, so I hope I didn't go too fast for you, but there is a page that I highly recommend viewing. Um, it is a quick reference. Let me navigate to that. That will help you to learn more about how to analyze the statistics. Because as you can see, there's a ton of statistics here, and it can be kind of overwhelming to figure out how to analyze it, what to make of these statistics, what you can use them for. So on this page called Quick Reference, Analyzing the Diversity Audit Tool Statistics, it has an overview of each of the statistics and some suggested uses. So I'm just going to go down to what I saw in here that was kind of interesting. And I like using this one as an example. So this one is the bibliographic records average age. And that comes from the publication year in the bibliographic record. So the example I chose for this one is using the subcategory table for the disabilities. And you can see here that under physical health, the average age in the whole CCS collection is 11 years, but a lot of new developments and new research regularly comes out on physical health all the time, even on general disabilities. So you may find that it's useful to look at the average age to see what you would need to update. You could weed the older titles and purchase newer titles. So it's fairly detailed, and I'm not going to go through this whole page, but feel free to let me know if you have any questions on any of these pages and any of this information on the tool that we have available for you. So you can email me at the help desk. So there is one other thing that I'd like to review. So 1 second, I want to stop sharing my screen. I have created a handout for you that's an interactive exercise that you can use to practice using the tool. And I'm just going to review it fairly quickly and then let you do it on your own. So one of the things about the tool is it can function very slowly. There's so much data in it that it has to analyze. So when you work on this, I just recommend that you don't all try to log in right away after the training session because it could be a bit slow if all of you are using it all at one time. So I recommend trying to choose a really random time to just log into the tool and play with it. I'm going to share my screen again. 1 second. So in this worksheet, it has a number of prompts for you to be able to use the tool. The first one is to look through the filters and identify the filters that you'd like to use to approximate your selection area. And I know sometimes that you have very specific Dewey ranges or very specific areas that may not be completely represented by the filters, but you can just you choose a best approximation for your collection that you can find, and you can use the statistical codes for Dewey decades, but unfortunately we don't have an easy way to do anything more specific than the Dewey decades and statistical codes. One thing though about the collection dashboard, if you're using the collection dashboard to create a list of titles, the statistical code is a bit finicky. So I forgot to mention this earlier, but libraries do not uniformly use statistical codes. So you do need to select ones that you may not be using in your library in order to have a dashboard that works properly and finds as many titles that you own properly, because one library may decide that an early reader should be listed as a picture book, but you may decide that it should be early reader. So for example, if you are working on selecting for picture books, try to think of as many types of statistical codes that could potentially be for the picture book section. And this could include also selecting none as a statistical code, because libraries don't use statistical codes sometimes. You can select picture book, holiday, biography, early readers, board book, and so forth, and you'll find many different statistical codes could be used. So this will instruct you to basically set up the filters for the Diversity Audit Dashboard first, and then to just analyze the percentage of the bibliographic records and item records so that you can identify specific categories that you may want to focus on selecting for in the future. You can then navigate to the subcategories table to see if looking at the subcategories will help you identify even more granular topics to analyze. You can then take a look at the circulation filters and see, or the circulation column, I mean, and see what has the highest average circulation or the lowest average circulation to see if something should be focused on. If there's a really high average circulation, you may want to purchase more on that topic. If there's a lower average circulation, you could actually choose to promote that by making those a display for that topic or a carousel for that topic, or even a book list for that topic in some way to see if you can increase the circulation of it. You can also take a look at that quick reference document on statistics to see if there's some other ways that you can gain any insight into the average circulation or other circulation statistics. So once you've analyzed that, you can navigate to the collection development dashboard to try playing around with it by setting up some filters based on the areas that you would like to identify additional titles to purchase, download it into Excel, and see if there's anything you're potentially interested in selecting. Are there any questions about the worksheet? I don't see any questions coming in, so I hope that's a good sign and I didn't confuse everyone too much, because it can be a lot of information to digest. There's a lot of statistics there. Feel free to play around with the tool and send me some emails if you have any questions or any suggestions on how to improve the tool. Feel free to let me know. So I am going to email you a link to the recording, a copy of the slides, and the worksheet. So you'll be getting an email from me shortly. If you have any feedback on our training sessions, I'll also be sending you a link to our survey so that you can provide us with any suggestions on additional training options you'd like to see in the future. If you have no other questions, I hope you have a great day, everyone, and stay warm.